Imagine walking into a room glittering with crystal chandeliers and tailored suits, where everyone's sipping champagne and talking about million-dollar deals. But the first words you hear are, "Hey, the kitchen's that way." Catering staff entrance. Your heart drops. Not because it's a mistake, but because you know exactly why they assume that. It's that split-second judgment based on how you look, your skin tone, the way you carry yourself, like someone who's fought for every inch. And right then, you decide, let them dig their own grave. This isn't just a mix-up. It's the start of a lesson they'll never forget. Hey, if you're already hooked and wondering how this unfolds into sweet, satisfying justice, hit that subscribe button right now. It keeps these real-life revenge tales coming your way. And drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Is it a cozy couch in New York? Or maybe late night scrolling in LA? Your stories make this community alive, and I love hearing them. Hi, I'm Elena Ramirez, 52 years old, a federal judge based in Chicago. I've spent my life in courtrooms, deciding fates and upholding justice. But nothing prepared me for the courtroom of prejudice at my own son's milestone. It all started on a crisp autumn evening in Washington, D.C. My son, Miguel, had just graduated from one of the top law schools in the country, Georgetown, the kind of place where future senators and CEOs rub shoulders. I was bursting with pride. Miguel, my only child, had overcome so much. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, where his dad left us when he was just 5, I raised him alone, juggling night shifts as a paralegal while studying for the bar exam. Every late night, every sacrificed weekend, it was for him. And now, here we were at this fancy reception, celebrating his entry into the legal world. I dressed up for the occasion, a simple black dress, nothing flashy, but elegant enough to blend in. Or so I thought. As I stepped through the grand doors of the university's alumni hall, the air smelled of fresh flowers and expensive cologne. People were milling about, laughing, clinking glasses. I scanned the room for Miguel, my heart swelling with that mom pride. You can't describe it's like your chest is too full to breathe right. But before I could spot him, a young event coordinator in a crisp uniform hurried over, clipboard in hand. She glanced at me, her eyes flicking up and down, and without a second's hesitation, she said, "Excuse me, ma'am, catering staff this way. The kitchen entrance is around the back. Don't want to disrupt the guests." Her tone was polite, but clipped, like she was doing me a favor by pointing it out. I froze. Me? Catering staff? I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, that familiar mix of shock and quiet rage. I'm a federal judge, for God's sake. I preside over cases that shape lives, from civil rights disputes to corporate fraud. But in that moment, all she saw was a Latina woman in her 50s, maybe a bit curvy from years of stress eating court documents, and assumed I was there to serve trays. It wasn't the first time growing up in a family where my lighter-skinned cousins got all the praise while I scrubbed floors to pay for school. I'd learned how invisible hard work can make you to certain eyes. I could have pulled up my credentials right then, flashed my judge's ID, watched her face turn beet red. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the exhaustion from a lifetime of proving myself. Or maybe it was that spark of mischief, call it revenge brewing. I wanted them to learn the hard way, to feel the weight of their assumptions crash down. So, I just nodded, forced a small smile, and said, "Oh, right, thank you." And I turned toward the direction she pointed, my heels clicking softly on the marble floor. As I wandered a bit, pretending to head that way but really circling back, I overheard snippets of conversation. "These events are always so elite," someone murmured. "Keeps the riffraff out." My stomach twisted. Was this what Miguel's new world looked like? He'd worked so hard to get here, but did he see how these invisible barriers still stood? Finally, I spotted him across the room, looking sharp in his suit, arm around his girlfriend, Sophia. She came from old money. Her dad was a big-shot corporate lawyer from Boston, the kind who summered in the Hamptons. Miguel had met her in class, and they seemed happy, but I'd always sensed a subtle undercurrent, like her family tolerated him more than embraced him. As I approached, weaving through the crowd, Sophia's father, Mr. Harrington, tall, silver-haired, with that entitled smirk, caught sight of me. He leaned toward an usher nearby and muttered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Keep that cleaning lady away from the VIP area. We don't need interruptions." Cleaning lady. The words hit like a slap. Not staff, but cleaning lady, the lowest rung in their eyes. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my purse. Betrayal washed over me. Not just from strangers, but from the world I'd fought to enter for my son. How many times had loyalty to my dreams, to my family, been trampled like this? But I bit my tongue, eyes locking on Miguel, who hadn't noticed yet. This wasn't over. The real storm was just beginning. And just when I thought the night couldn't sink lower, something happened that lit the fuse. For what came next, something that would expose every hidden betrayal in that room. You won't believe how it escalated. Part 2. Picture this. You're standing in the middle of a room full of people who think they're better than you. And one of them just called you a cleaning lady loud enough for half the crowd to hear. Your blood is boiling. But you're not yelling. You're not crying. You're smiling small, tight, the kind of smile that hides a storm. Because right then, you realize this isn't just about tonight. This is years of quiet slights, of people looking past you, finally coming to a head. And the question burning in your chest is, do I let them keep thinking they're superior? Or do I wait for the moment they'll never live down? If you felt that punch in the gut just reading it, you're not alone. These stories hit different when you've lived them. So if you're still here with me, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments, what's the worst assumption someone's ever made about you based on how you look? I read every single one. And trust me, your stories keep me going. So there I was, Elena Ramirez, 52, federal judge, standing 10 feet from my son Miguel and his girlfriend Sophia, pretending I hadn't heard her father's little comment. Mr. Harrington, let's call him Richard for the sake of this story, had that classic East Coast arrogance. Perfect teeth, perfect watch, perfect everything. The kind of man who probably still thinks diversity means hiring one person of color to check a box. He didn't even look guilty after saying it, just sipped his scotch and turned back to some senator's aide like nothing happened. I could have marched over right then, could have said, "Excuse me, Richard, but that cleaning lady is a sitting federal judge who's probably ruled on cases your firm lost." I could have watched his jaw drop, watched the color drain from his face. But I didn't, because revenge that quick is cheap. The best kind? The kind that simmers, the kind that lets them build their own pedestals so high the fall hurts more. Instead, I drifted closer, staying just out of Miguel's direct line of sight. I wanted to see how this played out. Sophia noticed me first. She gave a polite little wave, but it was the kind of wave you give someone you're not sure you want to talk to for long. Miguel's face lit up when he finally spotted me. "Mom," he broke away from Sophia and pulled me into a hug so tight, I almost forgot why I was angry. "You made it." I was worried traffic from the airport would kill you. I laughed, even though my throat felt tight. "Wouldn't miss this for the world, Mijo." He introduced me to a few classmates, nice kids mostly. But when we circled back to Sophia and her dad, the air shifted. Richard extended his hand like he was doing me a favor. "Elena, right? Miguel speaks very highly of you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You must be proud." Not many kids from, where was it? Chicago's South Side make it to Georgetown. The way he said South Side made it sound like a dirty word, like poverty was contagious. I shook his hand firm, no tremble. "Very proud. And yes, South Side, that's where real fighters come from." He chuckled, that fake, condescending chuckle rich men do when they want to seem amused instead of threatened. "Well, you've done well for yourself. Miguel says you're in public service?" Public service. That's how he described being a federal judge. Like I was a social worker handing out food stamps. I nodded slowly. "Something like that." Sophia jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "Dad, Elena's actually..." But Richard waved her off. "I'm sure she's very accomplished. We all start somewhere." That was the moment the knife twisted deeper. Not just because of what he said, but because Miguel didn't correct him. My boy, my brilliant, kind, hard-working boy just stood there, shifting his weight, looking at the floor. I knew that look. He'd grown up watching me get dismissed, watching people talk over me at parent-teacher conferences, at neighborhood meetings. He'd learned to stay quiet so things didn't get awkward. And now, in this shiny new world, that habit was showing. My heart cracked a little right there. Not anger, at least not yet. Disappointment. the worst kind. The kind you feel towards someone you love more than life itself. I excused myself to grab a drink, but really I just needed air. I stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the Potomac, the city lights glittering like they were mocking me. I thought about my own mother, how she cleaned houses for white families in the suburbs so I could take the bus to a better high school. How she never let them see her cry, even when they left tips under coffee cups like she was a waitress. I swore I'd never let anyone make me feel small like that again. Yet here I was, letting it happen, on purpose. But why? Because I realized something out on that balcony, wind whipping my hair. This wasn't just about Richard or the event staff. This was about protecting Miguel from a world that would always try to remind him where he came from. If I corrected them now, they'd smile, apologize, and then spend the rest of the night whispering about that aggressive Latina judge. Miguel would feel the tension. He'd feel torn between his girlfriend's family and me. No, I wanted them to keep talking. I wanted them to dig deeper, because the higher they built their little castle of assumptions, the louder the crash would be. I went back inside, head high, smile in place. And that's when I overheard the conversation that really lit the fuse. Richard, now surrounded by a small circle of important-looking people, was holding court. Look, I have nothing against affirmative action, but let's be real, some people get in because of it. Miguel's a good kid, but you can tell he's not from the usual pedigree. His mother's in public service, apparently. You do the math. Laughter. Soft, knowing laughter. I stood frozen behind a pillar, glass in hand, ice clinking like my heartbeat. And in that moment, I made my choice. I wasn't going to flash my badge. I wasn't going to announce myself. I was going to wait for the exact second the microphone called my name as the keynote speaker for the evening. But what I didn't expect, what broke me even more, was what happened next between Miguel and me. A quiet moment that changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty and betrayal. You know that feeling when betrayal doesn't come as a loud explosion, but as a slow, creeping ache that settles deep in your bones? That's where I was standing on that fancy balcony overlooking the Potomac, wind cold against my face, realizing my own son had chosen silence over standing up for me. Not because he didn't love me, because he was afraid. Afraid of rocking the boat in this shiny new world he'd fought so hard to enter. And that hurt worse than any insult Richard Harrington could throw. If this is hitting you right in the chest, if you've ever felt that quiet disappointment from someone you raised, someone you bled for, then stick with me. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. These stories are for people who've carried invisible scars and still kept walking. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever had to swallow your pride for your kids' sake? Where are you tuning in from tonight? I see you out there, Texas, California, even halfway around the world, and your words keep this fire burning. I took one last breath of night air, straightened my shoulders, and walked back inside like nothing had happened. Because the truth is, I wasn't broken. I was calculating. Every second they underestimated me was another brick in the wall they were building around themselves. Miguel found me near the dessert table a few minutes later. He looked nervous, like he knew something was off but couldn't quite place it. Mom, you okay? You disappeared for a bit. I touched his cheek the way I used to when he was little and had a fever. I'm fine, Mijo. Just taking it all in. This place is something else. He glanced over at Sophia and her dad, who were now laughing with a group of alumni donors. They're intense, I know, but Sophia's great. She really is. Her family's just protective. Protective. That's the word he used. I almost laughed, but it would have come out bitter. Protective of what? I asked softly. Of their image? Of who gets to sit at their table? He shifted, uncomfortable. Mom, come on. It's not like that. But it was. And deep down, he knew it too. I decided to test the water. Your girlfriend's dad called me a cleaning lady earlier. Loud enough for people to hear. Miguel's face went pale. He what? When? Doesn't matter when. What matters is you were standing right there, and you didn't say a word. He looked down at his shoes, expensive ones Sophia had helped him pick out. I didn't hear him clearly, and even if I did, I didn't want to make a scene. Not tonight. Not on my graduation reception. I nodded slowly, letting the silence stretch. So you'd rather let someone disrespect your mother than risk an awkward moment with your future in-laws? He flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. isn't it? My voice stayed calm, but inside I was shaking. I spent 25 years making sure no one could ever say you didn't belong somewhere. I took the long way around every closed door so you could walk through the front. And tonight, you let someone shove me to the service entrance figuratively and literally, and you stayed quiet. Tears welled in his eyes. Real ones. The kind I hadn't seen since he was 12 and his dad didn't show up for his birthday. Mom, I'm sorry. I love her. And I thought if I kept the peace. You thought keeping the peace meant keeping me small. I put my hand on his arm. I don't need you to fight every battle for me, Miguel. But I need you to see me. Really see me. Not as the woman who used to clean offices at night so we could afford your books. As the woman who earned every inch of respect she has. He wiped his face quickly, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. I do see you. I swear I do. I just froze. I pulled him into a hug then, because even in anger, he was still my baby. Freezing is human. But tomorrow? Tomorrow you decide what kind of man you want to be. We stood like that for a minute, the party swirling around us like we were in our own little bubble. When we pulled apart, he looked different, older somehow, sadder, but clearer. I'm going to talk to Sophia, he said quietly, and her dad, tonight. I shook my head. No, not yet. Let it play out. He frowned. Why? Because some lessons need to come from higher up than a son defending his mom. They need to come from the truth itself. He didn't understand. Not fully, but he trusted me enough to nod. The rest of the evening crawled by in slow motion. I made small talk with professors, smiled at classmates who congratulated me on raising such a promising young man. Every compliment felt like salt in a wound because I knew what they really saw when they looked at me. The exception, not the rule. The one who made it out, like surviving, was some kind of miracle, instead of what happens when you refuse to die. Around 8:45, the lights dimmed slightly, and the dean stepped up to the small podium at the front of the room. My pulse kicked up. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for without even fully admitting it to myself. Good evening, everyone, the dean began, voice warm and practiced. Before we move to the keynote portion of our program, I'd like to introduce someone very special, a distinguished alumna of our law school, a trailblazer in the federal judiciary, and tonight's keynote speaker, Richard Harrington, standing near the bar with his little circle, smirked like he was waiting for another scholarship kid story. The dean continued, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Elena Ramirez, United States District Judge for the Northern District of Illinois. The room erupted in polite applause. Richard's smirk froze, then died. His glass slipped an inch in his hand. Sophia's mouth opened slightly. Miguel, standing beside me now, squeezed my hand so hard it hurt in the best way. I walked to the podium, heels steady, chin up. Every eye in the room followed me. Every whisper stopped. I stepped to the microphone, looked straight at Richard Harrington, and smiled, not sweetly, not politely. The smile of someone who'd waited her whole life for this one perfect second. Good evening, I said, voice clear and calm. It's an honor to be here, though I have to admit, the welcome was a little warmer once I found the right entrance. A ripple of confused laughter. I let it hang for a beat. Earlier tonight I was directed to the kitchen. Someone mistook me for catering staff. And later, a very kind gentleman referred to me as the cleaning lady, who should be kept away from the VIPs. The room went dead silent. Richard's face was the color of spoiled milk. I continued, softer now, but every word carried. I could have corrected them immediately. I could have pulled out my credentials and ended the misunderstanding in 10 seconds. But I didn't, because sometimes the most powerful justice isn't loud. It's patient. It waits until the truth speaks for itself. I looked at Miguel. He was crying openly now, proud and wrecked all at once. So tonight, I'm not here to lecture about diversity or inclusion. I'm here to tell you one simple thing. Never assume you know someone's story just by looking at them. Because the woman you think is here to serve the drinks might just be the one deciding whether your case lives or dies. The applause started slow, then built until it roared. Richard couldn't meet my eyes. Sophia looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. And Miguel? He walked straight up to the podium, hugged me in front of everyone, and whispered, I see you now, Mom. I really see you. But the night wasn't over yet. Because what happened in the next few minutes, Richard's attempt to save face, Sophia's tears, Miguel's final stand, turned this from a personal victory into something much bigger. Imagine the silence after those words left my mouth, thicker than fog, heavier than any courtroom I've ever walked into. Hundreds of eyes locked on me, then slowly shifted to Richard Harrington, who looked like he'd just swallowed glass. His hand was still gripping that scotch, knuckles white, but the glass wasn't moving to his lips anymore. Sophia stood frozen beside him, eyes wide, cheeks flushed red, and Miguel, my boy, was right there at the edge of the podium, tears streaking his face, but his shoulders were square for the first time all night. This wasn't just my moment anymore. It was ours. If you've made it this far, if every twist of this story has kept you glued, because you felt that same slow burn of being unseen, undervalued, dismissed, then thank you. You're the reason I keep telling these. Hit subscribe if you're new here. Turn on notifications so you never miss when loyalty gets tested and justice finally answers. And in the comments, tell me straight, have you ever had a moment where you chose silence and it came back around like this? I'm reading everyone tonight. Where are you watching from? Malton, New York, London, doesn't matter. We're in this together. I took a breath and kept going, voice steady even though my heart was hammering. I didn't tell this story to shame anyone, I said, looking out over the room. I told it because assumptions kill more dreams than failure ever will. They kill quietly. They tell a child they don't belong before they even get a chance to prove they do. They tell a mother her sacrifices were invisible. And tonight, I almost let that happen again. I paused, letting it sink in. But I also didn't correct anyone earlier because I wanted something more powerful than anger. I wanted clarity. I wanted the people who judged me to feel in their bones what it costs when you reduce a human being to a stereotype. Another beat of silence. Then I looked straight at Richard. Mr. Harrington, I believe you said I should be kept away from the VIP area, that the cleaning lady might interrupt. I smiled, small and sharp. I'm not here to clean up messes. I'm here to make sure justice gets done even when it's uncomfortable. A few people actually gasped. Not dramatically like in movies, but real, quiet gasps from people who suddenly realized they'd been part of the same game. Richard tried to recover. He cleared his throat, stepped forward a half step like he was about to speak into the void. Judge Ramirez, he started, voice too loud, too forced. I clearly misunderstood. No harm intended. It was a simple mistake. The room waited. I tilted my head. Was it? He blinked. Because from where I stood, I continued. It didn't feel simple. It felt practiced. The way you said South Side like it was a slur. The way you laughed when someone suggested Miguel only got here because of affirmative action. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. His mouth opened, closed. No words came. I turned to the crowd. I've spent my career listening to excuses. Good ones, bad ones, clever ones. But the truth doesn't negotiate. So here's mine. I'm not angry. I'm tired. Tired of proving I belong every single time I walk into a room like this. Tired of watching my son learn to shrink himself so other people feel comfortable. I looked at Miguel again. He nodded once, small, but certain. So tonight I'm done proving. From now on, if you don't see me, that's your loss, not mine. The applause started again, louder this time. Warmer. Some people standing. Not everyone, but enough. I stepped away from the podium. The dean took over, thanking me, moving into the formal remarks I was supposed to give. But honestly, I barely heard them. My eyes were on my son. He met me halfway across the floor. No hesitation this time. He wrapped his arms around me like he was 10 years old again, burying his face in my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. I should have said something the second it happened. I should have said it years ago. I held him tighter. You're saying it now. That's what matters. Over his shoulder, I saw Sophia approaching, slow, eyes shiny. She stopped a few feet away, twisting her hands. Elena, Judge Ramirez, I didn't know. I knew Dad could be, but I never thought he'd. I cut her off gently. You don't have to apologize for him, Sophia, but you do have to decide what kind of family you want to build. One that looks the other way, or one that stands up. She swallowed hard, nodded. Then she looked at Miguel. I'm proud of you, she said quietly, for choosing your mom tonight. Miguel glanced at me, then back at her. I'm choosing what's right. If that means walking away from people who can't see what's right in front of them, then that's what I'll do. Sophia's eyes filled. She didn't argue. She just stepped forward and hugged him, awkward, tentative, but real. Richard never approached. He slipped out during the applause, glass abandoned on a table. I didn't chase him. Some people need to sit with their shame alone before they can change. Or maybe they never do. Either way, that wasn't my burden anymore. Later, after the formal program ended, Miguel and I stood outside on the steps, city lights reflecting off the water. The air was cooler now, cleaner. You know what the best part was? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. When you said you were tired. I've never heard you admit that before. You always acted like nothing could touch you. I laughed softly. Nothing can. For long. But I'm human, Mijo. And humans get tired. The trick is not staying tired. He hugged me again. I love you. And I'm never letting anyone make you feel small again. Not even me. That's all I ever wanted to hear. We walked to the car in silence, not heavy silence, but the kind that comes after a storm passes. Peaceful, earned. That night changed things. Miguel started speaking up more in class, with friends, even with Sophia's family when they tried to smooth things over later. He didn't cut them off completely, but the rules were different now. Respect wasn't optional. And me? I carried that evening like armor. Every time I stepped into a courtroom after that, I remembered the moment the room went quiet. Not because I needed revenge anymore, because I'd already won the only victory that mattered. My son saw me, really saw me, and he chose to stand beside me. Loyalty isn't blind, it's brave. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just patient, enough to wait until the truth has no choice but to speak. And when it does, oh, it speaks beautifully. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it reminded you that you're worth seeing, worth defending, worth every hard-won inch, then carry that with you. Tell someone else. Share this video, because the world needs more people who refuse to stay silent. Thank you for being here with me till the end. I'll see you in the next story. Take care of yourselves and each other. Elena out.